Welcome back, Toy Hunters, to another episode. Today, we're going to be going over how to wash your action figures. So before we get started with washing, we're going to want to have a few things together. The first thing you're going to want is a pile of action figures to wash. Today, I'm going to be washing my Jurassic Park action figures that I got from a recent haul video that we did. So before you get started with any of your other supplies, you're going to want to make sure you examine each of your action figures very closely, because there's a few things you want to watch out for before you start throwing them in water. The first thing you're going to want to watch out for is stickers. This Ralphie has a sticker on his stomach, and if I were to throw him in water and start scrubbing away with a toothbrush and washing him, I'm running the risk of having this decal go completely off his stomach, and I don't want that to happen. So you definitely want to make sure you're watching out for stickers. The other thing you're going to want to watch out for is any metal mechanics. So for example, I have this pterodactyl here that I got in this slot, and with him, he has mechanics on him that cause his wings to flap up and down. And when I looked inside, there is a metal piece that runs across to cause the wings to go up and down. So I'm definitely going to have to make sure that when I'm washing him, I'm very careful. He also has metal in the joints on his wrists. And the other thing that I have to watch for with him is he has cloth wings. So a few things that can happen if I'm not careful is I could have rusting going on because he does have screws in him. So any of these screws could start rusting. I could have rust on the inside, which would cause his mechanics to not work anymore. Or I could have rust in the joints, which would cause these to stick. With his wings, if I'm not careful, I could cause them to have watermarks or water stains on them. I could also cause them to start fraying, so I'm gonna have to be really cautious when I'm washing him. I do still think I could probably submerge him, as long as I dry him correctly. So a few things that you can do when you're drying your action figure, if they have metal on them, is just make sure you don't lay them flat. When you lay them flat, what I'm asking is for the water to start dripping out naturally on its own, and that doesn't always happen. So when the water's not dripping out, that's when you start having problems. So if I stand him up, I could also get the water to drip out, but the problem with that is I don't want the water dripping down his wings. So what I'm gonna have to do is lean him up on his head like this to dry him. And that will encourage the water that's on the inside to start dripping out. It will also encourage any water in the joint here to start dripping out without dripping down his wings and causing staining that way. So that's my plan. Once you've assessed your action figures and any areas that you need to be cautious about when you're washing them, you're going to need to grab a couple more supplies. So what you're going to want to grab is some dish soap. I prefer to use Dawn because I feel like it works really good, but you can use whatever brand works best for you. The other thing you're going to want to grab is a toothbrush. I use a used toothbrush that I have around the house that I was going to throw away. One of the reasons why I like using a used one is one, they're not super coarse. When you first get a toothbrush, it's really abrasive. It's kind of broken in a little bit. So they'll still scrub my figures, but hopefully won't scrub paint off of them, which I definitely don't want to do. Last thing you're going to want to grab is a magic eraser. So when you grab your magic eraser, you're going to be using it for hard spots. For instance, on this guy, I have some red marks right here on his back. I would be using the magic eraser here to get those off if I can't get them off with a toothbrush. You do want to be careful though when you're using your magic eraser, because if you scrub too hard, you're going to scrub your paint right off. So you're going to want to be super careful when you're doing it and cautious on the areas that you're scrubbing on. The other thing you're going to want to make sure you get is either a bucket of water to put your action figures in with a soap, or a sink. So I'm going to gather some supplies and I'll be right back.
A few minutes later.
Okay, Toy Hunters, we're about to get started on cleaning our action figures. So I have my pile here of toys to clean, and then I have my supplies, the magic eraser, the toothbrush, and the Dawn dish soap. I have my sink, and you're just going to want to plug it up and then start adding your water. And I put the dish soap directly under the stream of water. You don't need too much, you just need enough to get some suds going. Once you get a decent amount of water, and it really doesn't need to be too deep, once you get that in there, you're going to start adding your figures in. So I'm going to start putting some of the action figures in here that need to be cleaned. And like I said before, you want to make sure you're not submerging anything that has any stickers on them, decals, or anything that could cause problems when you're washing it off later. So we got everybody in there. We're going to let them soak for a little bit before we start scrubbing.
A few moments later.
Okay guys, so we're going to get started on our first figure. So we're going to grab our first action figure, our toothbrush. You want to make sure it's a little wet. And then you're just going to start scrubbing on your figure and get any of the dirt and grime from play off of him. So we're going to kind of just scrub him all over. And while we're washing him, we're really going to look for any extra marks that are having a harder time coming off, like he has a little blue on the edge of his hat right here. that's not seeming to want to come off with the toothbrush. But I'm going to flip him to the other side and see if I can't get the other grimy spots off of him before I focus on some of those dirtier spots. He also has this blue paint on his leg here. And I'm going to see if I can't get that off with the magic eraser. So you're going to grab your magic eraser and you're going to just get the corner of it wet. And you're going to just lightly scrub on those marks. You want to be careful because if you scrub too hard, you could take paint off on some figures. We want to see if we can't get these marks off of him. Looks like they're not going to come off. It may be paint or glue. So I'm going to have to try a different method, but he's pretty much clean now, so I'm just going to rinse him off. Other than the blue marks that are on him I can't get off, he's done. And let me get going on the rest of them. We just have this guy left. And this guy is going to be a little tricky to wash because of his wings. I want to make sure I don't get those too wet, and because of the metal joints in his arms, wrists, and the mechanism that causes his wings to flap. So let's get started and see if we can't get him clean without getting him soaked. So I'm going to scrub his body without submerging him all the way. I just want to kind of clean him up a little bit and do what I can without getting him super wet. And really, he only has a couple areas that are gonna need some attention, like right here on his stomach, there on his neck. The rest of him is in pretty decent shape. Other than that mark right there. Okay guys, so we were able to get most of the marks off of him. Look at his tummy, there's not really any black marks anymore. And I'm not going to soak him any farther because I've already gotten a little bit of his wing wet and I really don't want to get him any more wet. So I'm just going to sit him down with the rest of the figures, but I'm going to put him upside down just in case anything got into the mechanics. So I'm just laying everybody out to dry, and it'll take them a little while to dry off. And once they dry off, they'll be ready to be added into my collection.
Several song-filled hours later.
Alright, toy hunters, as you could see from our before and after takes, they're way cleaner than they were before. So all it takes is those easy steps to get your action figures looking like new. So just make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming videos. And remember, happy toy hunting!